We've got our bottom navigation working and the fragments switching out properly, so the next thing to do now is actually flesh out our layouts for both the running and the cycling fragment. Kind of a fun tutorial now. We can start making this app look really good. So I've got my two fragment classes open, the running fragment and cycling fragment, you can see at the top there. So I'm going to start in the running fragment and we'll start fleshing out that layout, and then for the most part we'll be just copying that over to the cycling fragment's layout and making a few changes to the text and the image. So we only really need to do this once. So command click into fragment running or get into that file another way, the layout file, and I'm going to close the project pane for this tutorial so I've got the full width available to me. I'm going to move the preview pane over until the preview starts to shrink. There, okay, good. So, pretty much the first thing that I do when I make a brand new layout file for a brand new screen is ask myself, is this likely to be more than the height of the screen? And not just in portrait, but also in landscape. And the answer is yes, if the user were to turn their phone sideways, they would run out of height. So because of this, I'm going to put the whole thing in a scroll view. So you can go ahead and do the same. Scroll view, of course we need to put the layout height and the layout width in again. So remember, for scroll views, we make the height and width match parent. So we have the scroll view fill the screen, but its contents can then be wrap content. The contents can be as high as they need to be. So scroll view's height match parent and layout width match parent. And I'm going to change the soft closing tag for a regular opening and closing tag. And that's pretty much all we need to do for the top level element, the root element. So I'm going to make the main view group inside the scroll view. A scroll view can only have one child. So the one view group inside the scroll view, I will make a constraint layout, as we know how to use that now. So start typing constraint and then autocomplete. So this, I'll make it to match parent, as wide as the screen, but height will say wrap content. So it can be as high as it needs to be. And then a normal right arrow, so we get our opening and soft closing tags. And now we can get to work. So the top section I want to be a nice image of either running or cycling, with my usual trick of having a gradient going from see-through white to see-through dark, just so that when we put some white text on top of that picture, it will be visible, it will look okay. I use this trick quite a lot. And so does Google actually. If you ever go to Google Maps, they sometimes do this effect. That's where I got the idea from. So for this image section, I'm going to use a frame layout to achieve this effect. I don't know that we've used the frame layout too many times before, or even at all. It's a very, very simple view group, very, very simple container, but it's pretty easy for us achieving what we need to achieve with this image effect. Quite easy to layer views on top of each other. Pretty much all it can do. So we'll make the width. We should probably do 0 dp rather than match parent if we're going to use a constraint layout properly. So we'll do 0 dp for the width. But the height I'll set to a fixed amount of density independent pixels. So 200 dp, 200 density independent pixels. And when I look on the right, I can see the blue outline. That seems to be an okay proportion of the screen. I will do a normal right arrow to give me the opening and closing tags, but I need to fill out a few things. I've got an error because I've not constrained this at all. So we'll start off by saying top to the top of the parent. And then for that 0 dp, for that match constraints thing, I'll do start to the start of parent and end to the end of parent. It kind of achieves the same effect as match parent for the width, but it's the correct way to do it in constraint layouts, so the documentation says. And one thing I'm going to remember to do right from the start is give every view inside our constraint layout an ID. Every view needs to know how to constrain itself in relation to other views or the parent, so because of this, we need to have an ID for every view. So ID, frame underscore heading, the heading image. And what I'll do now is I'll do the 3 views that I need inside the frame layouts to achieve my clever image effect. So I'll need an image view. This can be match parent. Remember now we're not inside a constraint layout, we're now inside a frame layout, so we'll do match parent and match parent for the height. Remember the frame layout is set to a height of 200 dp, so because of this we can use match height for the image view and some of the other views. So match parent, and for now I'll just do a self-closing tag. We'll come back to this in a moment once we import our images. So I'm going to want an image view, then layered on top of this image view I'm going to want my see-through gradient effect to slightly dim the image. So this will be a regular view with a background set on it. So we'll do view, again match parent, and then we'll need a text view to put the text on top of the image and on top of that gradient. So I'll do text view, I'll do match parent for the height, but I'll do wrap content for the text. I'll hardcode our text in for now, so I'll do text running. So you can see in the right we have this text view in the top left. And to position this at the bottom center of our frame layout, we can use layout gravity. We can say inside this layout, have this gravity move to this position. So layout gravity will move this within its view group. So if we say bottom, it jumps to the bottom. But because we've got match parent for this text view, you can see it fills the full width. We can actually control the internal gravity of the text view. So gravity, and we can now do center. So this is a good example of using both layout gravity and gravity in one view. A bit of a recap of some concepts we've talked about before. So layout gravity controls this view's gravity within its parent. Can move that wherever we want within its layout, within its parent, within its view group. But just the plain gravity attribute controls the internals of this view. Okay, everything inside this view. So that gets the text roughly in the right place. So I guess the next thing we should do is actually import our 2 images that we need. So if I now go to the left and open the resource manager. So for a quick and easy way to import these images, I'll go to the folder where these pictures are saved. I'll select both of them and I'll simply drag and drop them into this resource manager. I'm happy with the file names, running underscore heading, bike underscore heading, and then I'll do that no DPI thing for the density. So density, no DPI. This is a workaround to help reduce the chance of memory issues. Very soon in a future section, we're going to be looking at an image processing library that will take away all the pain with image memory management. But until we get there, this is a quick and easy shortcut to make sure it doesn't upscale or downscale and do anything funky with the images. Okay, so density, no density on both of them. Next. Both of these images are available in an upscale or downscale and image processing library that will take away all the pain with image memory management. But until we get there, this is a quick and easy shortcut to make sure it doesn't upscale or downscale and do anything funky with the images. Okay, so density, no density on both of them. Next. Both of these images are available in the resources section for this tutorial. They're about 40 and 70 kilobytes each, so they are pretty small. So fingers crossed you won't run into any memory issues with these pictures if you use these ones. Do feel free to use your own images, but do make sure they are as small as possible until we get to our image processing library in a later section. So import. So I have them there now. I can see running heading, bike heading, so I can close the resource manager. And in my image view, I can do src for image source, and I can type running heading. Okay, so we can see our running picture. It's not quite the same aspect ratio as the container, so we can do one of our scale types. So when I do scale type, center crop, it will zoom in until it fills the whole container, and then it will crop the bits of the edge, keeping it centered. So this is often the one that I use the most to fill image views. Center crop, that looks to be okay to me. So yes, we can't really see our text very well at the moment. In fact, let's do the text next. So we'll do font family sans serif light, my nice modern light font that I like to do. We'll do text color white, and now it looks like we have a color white already in our colors file. Let me just command click on that to make sure. Okay, that's good. So present versions of Android Studio are giving us the color of white and black by default in our colors file. You could, of course, hard code the color by doing #FFFFFF. Okay, if for any reason the color isn't in your colors file, feel free to do the hash code directly, or in the colors file, make a new color, name it your name, give it a value, and then you can refer to that in your code, your name. Okay, so if you haven't got white for any reason, feel free to put it in, or you can hard code it for now if you want to. So as I can see, running it's white, it's not very visible. I can try making the text size larger. So text size 24 dp. I'll probably give it a bit of margin from the bottom of the picture. We'll do layout margin bottom, something like 16 dp. But it's still not very visible, so I'm going to do my tried and tested gradient trick. So we can make a gradient drawable, a gradient file, which we can overlay on the picture with this view thing. So we'll open up the project pane. I'm actually going to use the target to jump to my resources folder, but we're going to actually make a drawable. So right click on the drawable folder, new drawable resource file. Okay, we'll make the root element a shape, so you can do shape and autocomplete, and simply call this something descriptive like our gradient overlay. Okay, and fairly straightforward, just one attribute to do this. You can have this in your projects for reference code, you don't need to memorize this at all, but we'll do the angle of 270, so it goes from top to bottom. We'll do start color, and I'll just hard code this. So we'll do fully translucent. So the first two of an 8-digit hex code is the translucency, so 00, and then FFFFFF. When you get a 6-digit hex code, that's a color. When you get an 8-digit hex code, that's adding some translucency, making it transparent. And then the end color, I'll make hash, almost opaque, but not fully, AA, and then black, 0000000. Okay, so this is a fully transparent white, fade into black, but becoming slightly less see-through as we go down. So then a self-closing tag, that's all we need to do. A nice, quick and easy gradient fade that you are free to use in your own projects. So back to fragment running, if I set the background on this view to be our gradient overlay, then we can see the picture dims and we can see our text clearly. So quite a neat little trick that. That's our heading section done. No need to give any of these the free to use in your own projects. So back to fragment running, if I set the background on this view to be our gradient overlay, and we can see the picture dims and we can see our text clearly. So quite a neat little trick that. That's our heading section done. No need to give any of these views inside the frame layout IDs because we're not using them for any constraints. Remember, they're inside our frame layout. But also, we're setting all the values in the XML code. We're not going to be talking to these views at all in our code. We've set the picture, set the gradient, and set the text. We don't really need to do anything else in here. I am going to do just best practice and extract the running string. So extract string resource, just call it running. Okay, that's best practice. I've made a mistake. I've done 24dp when it should have been 24sp. Okay, that warning goes away. We have got one more warning saying it's usually good to provide content description attributes on images. This is for people with visual impairments or people who are blind. So what you can do, you can actually Alt-Enter, Option-Enter on that, and set the content description, and then such users with visual impairments will tap around the screen with their thumbs, feeling for things and touching things, and they'll get a audio description. So you can simply just say this is the running image. As usual, we will do a string extract in case we want it in a different language. So we'll call this our running image description. Okay. So we've done two things there. We've provided the image a description, which is best practice for accessibility. You want to make the apps usable for people who are blind or have other visual impairments, okay? So when they tap around the screen, they'll tap and discover this big section at the top, but now it will read to them that it's the running image, so they'll know what they're touching. And by extracting the string resource, even of the content description, we've removed all of the warnings so far in our layout file. You can see the green tick. So this is best practice with layout files so far. So now we need the 4 records, or however many records you want to do. So under the frame layout, I want 4 touchable, tappable sections with a heading, a value, and a date. So I will do each of those sections in their own constraint layout, but actually I want them stacked on top of each other, top to bottom. So for this purpose, a simple vertical linear layout would be absolutely ideal for our needs. You don't always need to use a constraint layout for everything. So if we do a linear layout now, we'll make the width 0dp for our constraint layout, but the height we'll set as wrap content. Okay, so we're going to make the top to the bottom of the frame layout, the frame heading, start to starter parent, end to the ender parent, and then the orientation we will set to vertical, and then we'll do a regular right arrow. So we've now got a linear layout that will grow with every element inside it. And then for each of our records, each of our tappable distances that we can set values for, we will have a constraint layout. So we get lots of control for where to put things in each mini section. Okay. So we'll do our first one first, and then we'll probably be able to copy this 4 times. So another constraint layout inside our linear layout. And now we're back in the linear layout. We're not inside another constraint layout. So we'll make the width match parent and the height wrap content. And then I'll do a right arrow. And we will give this an ID so that the user can touch it, and we can add a click listener to this. So I'll do ID, and we'll call this our container for our 5 kilometer record. So the first thing I want, approximately in the top left, is a text view heading that says the distance. So we'll do text view. We'll make it wrap content this time. We don't need to fill the full width. And wrap content for the height. I'll just do a self-closing tag for now. So first of all, we'll add the constraint. So we'll make it in the top left of the constraint layout. So we'll do top to the top of the parent and start to the start of the parent, but that's it. Okay, just scrolling down. And we'll hard code the text for now before extracting it in a moment. So we'll do text 5 kilometers. Okay, we can just about see that there. Very small, not styled yet. In fact, even before styling this text view, I can see I'm going to want some padding both on my linear layout and on each individual constraint layout. It's far too close to the picture. Far too close to the edge of the screen. So on the linear layout, let's squeeze everything in with some padding. We'll do something like 16 dp. So that squeezes things in for the whole linear layout for every individual section. And another thing I'll do is I'll add some more padding to each individual record, because if you look at that blue outline, you can see it's very close to the contents. But this might make it a bit tricky for the user to tap or to touch. Remember, we're going to put a click listener on this so they can tap it and change it. So if we add a bit of padding, it will make the touch area, the click area, a bit easier for the user. So let's do padding and add a further 12 dp. And you can see that's going to add a bit of extra space, so when the user touches and taps, it'll be a bit more responsive for them. Good practice when you're making things that aren't buttons clickable. Give them a bit of extra padding, make touching them and tapping them that little bit easier. Okay, so now I can see my 5 kilometers a bit better. Let's start to style this now. First of all, we'll make it a bit bigger, so the text size can be 20 dp. 20 SP, always forget that. Scaled pixels, so it will grow and shrink if the user changes the global text settings on their phone. I will give it a nicer font, so font family. I want this one to be a bit heavier than the rest of the text. It's a heading after all, so simple sans serif will be better, give it a bit more weight. And just for fun, we will color this in our app's primary color. We haven't changed the default colors for now, so I could go to our themes or our styles.xml, it's themes for me, and look and see that the color primary is this purple 500. So I could just change the text color to color purple 500. I could do that. But then when we change our theme color later, we'll go ahead and we'll change its primary and primary variant colors later on to our nice green for a change. Well, when we change the theme, then this color that we've hard coded here, purple, it's going to be wrong and we might forget to change it. So there's a neat little shortcut to refer to attributes in our theme. You can do $attr, so this is referring to an attribute we've got to find somewhere else. Weird syntax, I know, don't worry about remembering this. But now we can type color primary. So that still refers to the same purple, but then when we go and change our theme to something like, I don't know, let's say I change it to teal 200, well, when I go to fragment running, it changes with it. So it's a very strange syntax, this $attr, attribute slash, but that refers to any attribute that we've got defined in our themes, okay? So this is a really good practice thing to do if you want your text colors or button colors or anything in your layout files to follow what you've got in your theme. So neat little shortcut. Don't worry too much about the what and the why of this strange thing. I'm not even sure I know why it's called this. I do know that it's referring to attributes rather than hard-coded values. It's a really good way to keep your app in line with your theme. So I'll go ahead and change that back to purple 500 for now. That jumps back. So we'll have our theme primary color for the text. And otherwise that looks pretty good. Let's move over now to the other two text views. So text view, wrap content. This time I want it to be in the top right, so I'll do end to the end of the parent, and again top to the top of the parent. And this time I don't want to hard code any text because we'll be setting this based on the code, depending on what the user has stored. So I'll do tools to have the preview. So tools, and if you hover over it and do Alt-Enter, you can import the tools namespace at the top there, tools, okay? So now I can do tools text, and this won't appear when we run the app. So I'll do an example time. I'll do my actual 5K PB. Recently got 2204. Don't think I'll ever get sub 20, but something to aim for, I guess. So 2204. Let's do some gentle styling on this one now. This time we'll make the font family a bit lighter, so it stands out from the heading. So sans serif light. We'll still make it the 20 SP size, so we'll match the size, but because it's slightly lighter font, it will seem less strong. That's good. And we'll do a slightly darker grey than that, so we'll do text color. And I think best practice, I shouldn't hard code the color here, so I'll go to my colors, and I'll make a new grey. I'll duplicate this line, white. I'll change the name to a dark grey, and I'll do something fairly dark, like... Actually, I'll click on the color on the left, and I'll choose one. Something down there. 323232, that seems to be okay. Can barely see it, must match the same color as the margin. So 323232, so now I can refer to color dark grey. That looks a little bit better. So I will do a self-closing tag. I'm in a constraint layout, so I should give these IDs. So we'll say ID text view 5 kilometer heading. And this can be the text view 5 kilometer value. That's good. So now I can do my final text view for the date of the record. Again, wrap content, but this time I'll do top to the bottom of the 5 kilometer value. Now, I've got the ID to put it in relation to that. And again, I do end to the end of, someone at the far side. And I don't want to hard code a date, so I do tools text just for a preview date. When did I actually achieve this? I think it was sometime in November last year. So there we go. I want to give it a bit of margin from the top. So I do margin top 16 dp. And I want the font family to be light again. So font family sans serif light. I want it to be bigger than default, which I think is 14, but not quite as big as the others. So I do 16 SP. And I'm probably okay with the default color. Yeah, default color is okay. I think it's slightly lighter than our grey. Okay, so that's nicely formatted. I'm going to want some sort of divider line between each section. So after the constraint layout, really quick and easy way to do a divider line is do a view. We'll make the width match the parent, because remember that parent is the linear layout. But it's got some padding. You can see that blue line there. That's fine. But if you make the height 1 dp, or however thick you want your line to be, and then you can set a background of a color. So I'll go and define a light grey color. So I'll duplicate that line and do light grey. I'll just choose something a bit lighter, maybe. That seems okay. So we've got light grey color. So if you set the background to be that color of light grey, you can see we have a divider line. I probably want it to be even lighter than that, so I'll just change it to something right near the top left. That looks a bit better. So yeah, we've got a divider line. I'll do a normal self-placing tag, and I'll give it a bit of margin from the top of that section. So margin top 16 dp, and that's all we need to do. We don't even really need an ID because we're inside a linear layout. So that looks to be okay to me. So again, if I do an auto format, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this view, this divider line, and the entire constraint layout above it, our 5 kilometer record, and I'm going to copy all of this 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3, our 5 kilometer record. So again, if I do an auto format, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this view, this divider line, and the entire constraint layout above it, our 5 kilometer record, and I'm going to copy all of this 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go ahead and delete the last line, which we don't need. I've got a whole load of errors because I've got duplicate IDs, but that's fine. I can use those errors to show me what I need to change. So I'm going to leave the first errors because that's our first 5 kilometer container. If I scroll down to the second one, right. So from here, we can change this to container for 10 kilometers. I'll change the text view for 10 kilometer heading. Okay. Do take extra care here that you're changing the right values. It's easy to get muddled up when we've got so many views, so many attributes and elements in our layout file now. But looking on the right, I appear to be on the right one, so this is good. So this is now the 10 kilometer value, and the 10 kilometer date, I'll leave the dummy text values the same because I don't really care about that being accurate in my layout file. I've got an error now because this 5 kilometer value isn't in this container, this constraint layout. So I'll just copy that 10 kilometer value, and now that should fix the layout. Good. So you see that? We've got 10 kilometers nicely working. This will be the half marathon time. Okay, actually I'm going to copy half marathon like that, and then swap out everywhere where I see 5 kilometers. So text view half marathon heading, text view half marathon value. Should also change the text as well for half marathon date, and then making sure to do the correct half marathon value there. Okay, just looking to the right to make sure we've done it correctly and that the layout works, and it does. And then the final one is the full marathon time. So container marathon, copy that, marathon, 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 and making sure to lay this out next to the text view marathon value. And when I look to the right, that looks done to me. So quite a big file here. If you've made any mistakes or anything's not looking right or you've got any errors, then do be sure to check over all the code carefully. Very easy to make a mistake when you're going through so many attributes. I'm going to make this layout file, get the nice green tick. Just got 4 things to do, and that is extract all the hard-coded strings. So I'll extract this and call it 5 km heading, and then a long tutorial. So what I'll do